No one I know actually enjoys filling out forms, be it applications for jobs, applications for college, filling out your tax forms. A lot of these can be very complex and actually deter the individual from wanting to complete the form or apply for whatever benefits the form provides. The same is actually true for the VA. Today we'll talk about VA Form 526EZ. That is the application for disability compensation and related compensation benefits. So welcome back. My name is Mike. I'm a 28-year Army veteran, but also served as a county VSO for several years. Like I said, we'll talk about the VA Form 526EZ. We'll go over it step by step. We'll tell you what it is, but also provide some pro tips and some pointers on the actual filling out of this form. Note, as before, this is not legal advice. It's just me sharing my experiences and education as a former county veteran service officer. So let's get started. First, what is VA Form 21-526EZ? It is the form required by the VA to actually apply for disability compensation. It is almost like your cover document when you apply. There are three basic sets of information that they seek from you by this form. One is your personal information, who you are. Second, your military service information. And third, your actual claim information. What conditions are you going to actually be making a claim for? All go out on this sheet. And there's a little bit more of information on here, which we'll go over as we go through it. Note, actually, this is the only form you need to complete and send in when actually applying for VA benefits. Though I would not recommend it, and I've never seen anybody only send in this document. They always make sure they send in the appropriate evidence, medical records, lay statements, and so forth. So now let's take a look at the form. Initially, you see the forms, you print it off, somebody hands it to you, you look at it online. It's actually 15 pages long. That can be actually intimidating. But if you go through and see the first 8 pages are basically background information and also some of the instructions. So right away, you can set those 8 pages aside. So now we're down to only 7 pages of information required. As we go through it, we'll see that we will cut it down to even less. So first, looking at the actual form above the first section, there's really 4 different blocks you can check for what type of claim you're putting in. There's a fully developed claim program, there's the standard program, and there's the BDD. BDD is generally for service members that are coming off of active duty. So for the purpose of this video, we'll skip that one. So a fully developed claim is one where you perceive that you have all the documentation, all the evidence, everything you need to make that decision by the VA. And then you can check FDC. If there's information you need the VA to look up for you or that you may have to provide later, that comes under the standard claim. Pro note, checking either block does not change the process by which the VA evaluates your case. It just may expedite it. But the decision by the VA is they will determine if your actual application meets a standard for FDC or a standard form. And like I said, I've never seen that much of a difference, even in the timeline for processing claims, regardless of which block you actually check. So now, continue into first section. Section 1 is just your personal information. Your name, your address, social security number. It will say VA file. If you've never submitted before, you leave that blank. And it also has a space for your phone number and email address, which are actually optional. Very easy. Section 2, this is if you actually change the address. If it's your initial claim, obviously you're not changing addresses. Your address will be the same that's in Section 1. So that completes actually page 9 of the form. So now turning into page 10. First, you'll see at the top of each form it has a section for your Social Security number. Please ensure you fill that out just in the event that your form gets intermingled with other forms or other documents or other claims at the rating specialist desk, so they can track that this actually belongs to your case. So section 3, homeless information. If it doesn't pertain to you, you can just skip it. If you do, or you're experiencing homelessness, or maybe will in the near future, fill this out, and it will also serve potentially to expedite your information and your claim. Section 4, exposure information. This pertains to if any of your claims, any of your conditions you believe are going to be subject to presumptive, PACT Act, Camp Lejeune water, or possibly Agent Orange. So just fill out this section if you have been in any of those locations, and especially if you're going to have claims associated with presumptive conditions. Now we turn to section 5. Now that's at the very beginning. It starts on the bottom of page 10 and moves into page 11. Page 10 actually has an example. This is where you list the conditions in very general terms of what you're going to apply for. First example here that they give you in the VA says hearing loss. And it says the example of exposure, noise. Example of the conditions of service is heavy equipment, and then the actual dates. So you keep it very generic. It gives you the examples. It gives you 3 different examples, and just sort of follow those examples, and you'll put in a single line entry for each condition that you are actually filing. And so if you turn to page 11, you'll see this has 15 lines for you to submit up to 15 conditions on this section. And it's 1 line per condition. Pro note, use an example the VA gives you. Hearing loss and tinnitus are 2 separate conditions. They are not the actual same. So if you're going to put in a claim for hearing loss and you're going to put in a claim for tinnitus, make sure you're putting them on different lines, even though the causes, the dates are the exact same. So make sure that those 2 are separated, because that's a very common perception that people think tinnitus is actually hearing loss. It is not in accordance with the VA medical standards. Following at the bottom of that section is what VA or Department of War facilities you've been treated in, especially if they are related to the claims. Now, for those that have already been in the healthcare system from the VA, these are very important, because these allow the VA, instead of you having to go search and obtain those records, the VA can go into their internal system and get those records to prove your treatments, your diagnosis, that if they were done by the VA, not by your private physician. The last section, it lists some forms that you may need to fill out if you're going to file for certain conditions. And of those, one of the most important you'll see is mental health, and that is 210781. But you can see that, and we'll do a video on that one at a later date. So this page 11 already very simple, just lists the conditions and the terms. They actually give you examples of how to write it in a more generic, broad manner, not overly specific. So now turn to page 12. This is your service information. Very straightforward, but you need to be very, very precise. My advice, pro tip, is that when you fill out this form, ensure that you have every single one of your DD-214s with you. Some, like myself, I only received one DD-214 for my entire 28 years. Many people will get them, they received them per enlistment. And also many in the National Guard and Reserves will receive a DD-214 for each deployment that they actually went on. So make sure you have those, because if this information that you put on this form does not match your DD-214s, then it could sidetrack, delay significantly, maybe even losing your effective date if they have to kick it back or deny it because of service validation. Also a note, it's your DD-214. The VA does not use the NGB 22 as a source document to validate federal military service. So that's straightforward. Section 7 is your service pay and or your retired pay. This is a subject for another video, but I'll go over it very, very quickly. By law, if you receive VA compensation, they have to, and you're also receiving military retirement, there's a $1 for $1 offset, meaning that let's say you got a VA rating, individual, no family, at 40%, that's about $795 per month. They would take $795 from your federal retirement pay and give it to you in VA pay. The difference is, for the VA pay, is not taxable. Now, a lot of states and many states do not tax military retirement anyway, but the federal government does. So that $795 will come off your retired pay and now become non-taxable VA pay. Now this is true up until you have a cumulative rating of 50% or higher. Once you hit the threshold of 50% or higher as a VA rating, single or cumulative, you're able to draw both equally. So in the scenario we gave before, if you hit 60%, you'd get your full retirement pay, and then you'd get the actual pay for from the VA that correlates with that 60% rating. One last note on that with pay, once you hit 30% rating, you're entitled to an additional compensation for dependents, and that will depend if it's just a spouse with children, how many children, if you're taking care of parents legally, and so those are also. But we can go over this in a follow-on video at a later date. So this finishes page 12. So now, turning to page 13, again, it starts off with finishing the last section about your retirement pay or pensions. And then we go into section 8, direct deposit information. Very simple. You give them the bank, the institution, routing number, and account number for the bank institution that you want any type of compensation to go into. And also has a block. In the event that you do not have a bank, you'll check that block and they will work to potentially send you a check every month. Last section, or next section, is the actual claim certification. Basically, signing date. Very, very important. You must sign and date. If you don't check anything else, make sure you sign and date. If you do not sign, you do not date, the VA will kick it back, and then you just lost however many months in the actual claims process. Next section, the last section, 10, is in the event that you have to sign with just an X without your signature. This is a witness that's like almost like a semi-official notary that says that will witness that your X is actually your signature. So then we turn to 14. Again, more of that is the actual signature. If you have a power of attorney that you've given someone, and that they have to provide an alternate signature, that's for page 14. I've never seen anybody have to use this. And then the last page, again, is exactly like it's additional lines in case you want to make claims above and beyond 15 line items. This one provides another 20 lines for you to actually file different conditions. And if you go beyond 35, you can get another one of these sheets and fill it out. So you can put as many as you actually desire and use additional sheets. You're not limited by the number of lines. So in simple terms, this is a very simple form. As you can see, it's basically 5 pages of real information. And like I had mentioned before, the key things is who you are, your actual military service, which will match your DD-214 or several DD-214s, and then you'll list out the conditions that you are applying for. Another pro note, especially in the sections where you're listing out your conditions. As we discussed in a previous video, that using the VA form 21-4138, statement to support the claim, is you want to list out your roadmap for each condition. So ensure that your 4138, as you list out the conditions, match your actual VA form 21-526EZ to make it more concise, more compact, more accurate. Again, this is not a difficult form. It's very basic, and like I said, it's required. It's usually the very first form that you'll put in your packet when you send it to the VA. And like I said, there's a link in the comments to this form, and there's also a link in the description of the video. So if you have any other questions, comments, please put them in the comments below. And I'd like to thank you for your service. Thank you for your time, and best of luck with your claim.